Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Kenzie Caputo. I work on the admissions team at SYA, or School Year Abroad. I'm going to wait a little bit for folks to start tuning in. I don't want to start right away, but while we have people waiting and before we start the presentation, I'm just going to give a little rundown of our schedule for this evening. I want to be mindful of everybody's time, including our alumni on the call. So we're going to try to keep this info session to 40 to 45 minutes. And I'll explain a little bit more about the questions as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If we don't answer your questions, I'll share my email in the chat, and you're more than welcome to reach out to us at SYA Admissions to learn a little bit more or to get your questions answered. But I'm going to go over the breakdown of tonight's info session. So thank you for joining. We are going to start with introductions from our students in a few minutes. They're going to talk a little bit about themselves, what program they went to. We're going to jump into a presentation, and then we are going to go into Q&A. So we have some questions prepared that our students are going to answer, shorter ones and longer ones as well. And then we have some questions from all the folks tuning in who submitted them beforehand. So we'll answer those. And then if you do have any questions that we didn't answer, you're more than welcome to put them in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. I do want to note before we get started that this is going to focus majority on the semester and the full year programs. We do offer summer programs as well, but that isn't really going to be the main focus of this event. So if you have questions about the summer, definitely check out our website. There's a whole page on our summer programs, and you can email us at syasummer@sya.org, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you as well. But this is going to be focused on our students. They're all full year students, but we're going to talk about the full year and the semester programs that we put on at SYA. So thank you for tuning in. I'm going to add all of our students back on the stage in a second. Great. So they're all here, and we're so lucky to have our students tuning in. Each of them went to a different country. So we're going to learn a little bit more about their experiences there. But first, we're just going to have them introduce themselves. So students, if you guys could introduce yourself, say your name, what grade you're currently in, where you went to school, what program, and what school you're currently in. So we'll start with Tatia. If you don't mind saying it in the language of the country you went to and then saying it in English, that would be great.
Ok. Mi chiamo Tatia. Sono andata in Italia, Viterbo. Sono un senior. Frequento Waynfleet is my high school. Did I miss anything?
No, that's great. Awesome. All right. Andy,
should I say it in English?
Yes.
Sorry. I went to Italy. I go to Waynfleet High School. I'm a senior.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Andy, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hola, soy Andy. Soy de Boston, Massachusetts, y fui a España. Y ahora voy a Milton Academy. Hi, I'm Andy. I'm from Boston. Oh, I'm a senior. I went to Spain last year, and I go to Milton Academy.
Great. Awesome. And last but not least, Andre, do you want to share a little bit about you?
Bonjour, je m'appelle André et je suis allé en France pendant l'année et je vais à Woodward Academy ici. Hi, my name is Andre. I went to France for the year, and I currently go to Woodward Academy.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, guys. We are going to switch from this to our presentation. So if you're tuning in, you might have seen this presentation at your own school. So bear with me. This is great information for our students and parents alike. But if you've been to a school where an SYA representative has been, it's going to be a little bit familiar for you. So I am going to share my screen, and we will get started. Just give me 1 second. All right. So hi, everyone. If you didn't catch the beginning of this info session, my name's Kenzie Caputo, and I'm a Senior Assistant Director of Admissions at School Year Abroad, or SYA. So picture yourself here, traveling around Europe with your new best friends, learning the language through speaking with locals, and living with the host family. If you can picture that and it excites you, it's time to apply to SYA for a full year or for a semester. So, as you might know, we have 3 different campuses, one in France, one in Spain, and one in Italy. And we invite you to step outside your comfort zone and try something different with SYA. We're here to turn your learning journey into one that's focused on real-life experiences and adventures at one of our 3 European campuses. We like to say that we focus on textbooks, and we want our students to get outside of the classroom and learn from what they're learning in the classroom and see it for themselves in real life. So I have a short video that I'm going to play, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about our programs.
To me, SYA is basically an adventure. You are experiencing new culture, language, people, environment. Everything is new.
I realized that there's so much more out there. It's kind of just opened up my view of the world.
I feel like from my classes, a city has come alive. I understand the history, the context of everything.
At some point, you really just start feeling like French is like a second language to you.
It's very independent, but there's so much support. It's an amazing experience that not a lot of people get.
I would say as of now, I'm totally confident in my Spanish.
My Italian skills have improved immensely. I spoke 0 Italian when I came here.
You can see over the year, you're just getting better and better. Honestly, it really lifts you up, and I've honestly become much more confident in my ability to speak with others, not only in French, but also just in general. I enjoy immersing myself in a new culture. If you're looking to learn outside of the classroom, if you're looking to have knowledge that literally enhances the world around you,
It really helped me get out of the bubble, the small town life I was in New York, and I've gotten to see a new perspective and an entirely new culture.
the freedom that you're also given in SYA allows you to explore who you are in yourself.
I've learned the most Italian from my host family and just the most about Italian culture and Italy through them.
Your host family is amazing.
All the families at SYA who host are so incredibly welcoming and so incredibly just there to help you learn and invite you into their family.
I absolutely know that I'm going to keep in touch with them because they're very special people to me.
It's okay to be a little scared at the beginning. I know I was, but you will be surprised by what you can do.
You know, I was even confused. I didn't know if I wanted to leave my home for 9 months because, again, it's really intimidating. It's all about, taking that step, taking the leap of faith, and it pays off.
I'm so grateful for the person that I've become here. I definitely would recommend SYA.
I would say take the leap.
Definitely do it. I'm very glad that I did it.
The independence and kind of the personal growth I've gained from being at SYA is something that I'll take with me for the rest of my life, for sure.
Awesome. So I always love to see that video, and it's great to see some familiar faces on this call tonight in that video as well. But like that video mentioned and some of our students talked about, all of our students, no matter what program, so for the full year and for the semesters, will live with a personally matched host family, and they've really become your home away from home and help support you alongside our faculty members while you're living in a different country. Now at SYA, our students will be going to our own campuses, and you'll be part of a small student body composed of sophomores, juniors, and seniors from high schools across the US. And these are the schools that our students will be going to. So we're not putting our students at a random high school in Spain or France or Italy. They're going to our own school with our own faculty members and other SYA students, and they'll be taking all of their classes at these buildings. I do want to note that for those students who are interested in attending our Spain and France programs, that you have to be at or above a level 2 in Spanish or French to apply to the programs. If you're interested in Italy, you do not need to know any Italian to apply because most schools don't teach Italian, so anybody can apply to our SYA Italy programs. I do want to note that if you're worried or nervous about the language component of our programs, a wide variety of language learners are able to excel at SYA due to our fully immersive programming and our teachers who, really want our students to grasp the language and have the support that they need to do so. At SYA, we want our students to get outside of the classroom. So we have regular fieldwork days that will take students outside of the classroom for all of their subjects and kind of get into the community and use their language skills. So that might look like interviewing locals for your political science class, or visiting world-renowned museums for your art history class, or investigating local farming practices for your agroecology class or your environmental science class. We really want our students to get outside of the classroom and see what they're learning for themselves. Along with our school and, doing school curriculum, we also have school trips throughout each of these countries. And we want our students obviously to practice the language, but this is a great way to practice it, learn more about the culture as well. So if you're in Italy, you may be going to places like Naples. In France, you might be going to Normandy, and in Spain, you might be going to Andalusia. All different corners of the country we want our students to explore, and it's great to have that experience coupled with the language component of our program. At the end of the year or end of the spring semester, we have something that's called the capstone project. So it's kind of like a culminating end of the year project where students take something that they're interested in and also work on their language and put it together. And students take this all different ways. So it could be researching and designing an outfit. It could be studying environmental sustainability or going to different farms and investigating those practices as well. Students are able to really take what they're interested in and turn it into something, a project that they can, show their students and their family as well. At SYA, we have somebody who's called an extracurricular coordinator at each of our campuses. Their job is to help our students find activities and clubs while they are abroad. So it could be sports, it could be musical groups, theaters, or service-oriented opportunities. We want our students to get outside of the classroom, engage in the local community as well. And these are great opportunities to meet students, from the local areas and, form bonds with them. We also have exchanges each semester. So it's another opportunity for students to get outside of their comfort zone, meet local friends as well. Now, while you are abroad, our American faculty members will keep students on track in math and English, where local teachers will keep students on track in their language classes and their extracurriculars. So our local teachers will be teaching in the target language and challenging our students to use that language and kind of push them to do so as well. And they'll be the ones guiding our students on our field work outside of the classroom as well as school trips. I do want to talk a little bit about colleges. So for some people tuning in, colleges might be a little bit far away, but it's always good to think about. I do want to note that all of our schools are PSAT and SAT testing sites. So you'll be able to take those tests while you are abroad and stay on track with that college process. We do have college liaisons at each of our campuses. Their job is to help our juniors start the college process and help our seniors finish the process. So you'll have support there as well. But I think most importantly, this is an opportunity that not a lot of high school students are able to get in high school. When you think of study abroad, a lot of students think of college. So being able to have this opportunity in high school really helps you stand out to the colleges that best suit your interests. Being able to demonstrate the grit and ambition it takes to live in a new country, learn a new language, or perfect a new one says a lot about you as a person and helps you stand out. I do want to touch on financial aid briefly. So we do have a large financial aid budget at SYA for our students, and we offer over 10 different scholarships. We have a lot of need-based and merit-based aid for our students, so I strongly encourage you to apply for aid. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us as well. We want to make sure that this is something that's attainable for most families and for a small program that really does need a lot. I know this is a lot of information, but to sum it all up, SYA is a risk worth taking. We want students to get outside of their comfort zone and try something different with their college career. And this is a great opportunity to do so while focusing on the language component as well. So we hope to see you at one of our campuses in either Rennes, France, Viterbo, Italy, or Zaragoza, Spain for the full year or for the semester. Our applications are not due until February, so there's plenty of time to think this over with your family, students, talk to your parents and family at home. Definitely talk to your students about this. We in the admissions team are here to help you as well. I strongly recommend that you follow us on social media at School Year Abroad. We have campus reporters on each of our campuses whose jobs are to post content about their times abroad right now. As great as it is to hear from me and other people in the admissions team, it's wonderful to hear from our students as well. Most of you should be on our email list, but if you're not, you can scan the QR code on your screen, and that will take you to the email list as well. I know it's also in the chat too. But speaking about our students and how great they are, we are going to get into Q&A with our students, and we're going to invite them all back to the screen and get to know them a little bit more. All right. So we have some short Q&A first that we're going to dive into. Tatia, can you talk to us a little bit about your favorite class that you had in Italy?
Yeah. I had way more than just one, but one of my favorites was agroecology, which was basically a science class kind of focusing on food and ecosystems in Italy, which is such a big part of the culture, and looking at it from a scientific viewpoint and also just, I don't know, a social viewpoint. And so we did a lot of we made our own wine, which was insanely cool. I did not know how wine was made until last year. And we picked the grapes and then we fermented it and we waited all year until the end of the year. We had wine and we foraged for mushrooms and asparagus and made cheese and the list goes on. So it was really cool. And I realized that was something I was really interested in, was just that aspect of food and agriculture.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. It does seem like a very cool class. We're going to move on. Andre, do you want to talk about either a favorite class or a favorite extracurricular?
Yeah, so I actually did two extracurriculars. I joined the swim team and I also joined the local orchestra, the youth orchestra. And for the swim team, I went like 2 to 3 times a week, and it was actually such a fun experience because I got to meet like teenagers my age, and I made friends. There were some students from SYA who also joined the swim team, so I got to know them so much better. And honestly, yeah, it was just such a cool experience, like learning swimming in like a new language, and then like also like I did competitions there, and it was just really cool.
Wow. I imagine that is something that you're not hearing in school, different words for swimming in French and the things you need to know. So that's an incredible experience. Thank you for sharing. Andy, do you want to talk a little bit about your favorite food in Spain?
Yes, totally. I would say my favorite food was tortilla de patata. I don't know if you're familiar. It's like egg and potato, and it's like in the shape of a circle. And it's very common. And actually, this relates to the extracurriculars. At least I know for SY Spain, they had a cooking class, so you could do it a few times a year. But it was, I think, each time it was for 4 weeks, and they would teach you how to cook two like traditional Spanish meals per week. So I learned how to cook tortilla de patata in that class, and a lot of students signed up for it, and it was one of my favorite extracurriculars. But you get to try so many local and specific foods to your country. So that was one of my favorite aspects of living in Spain.
That sounds great, and that sounds delicious. And we can talk a little bit about favorite trips. I know, Andy, you wanted to talk about a favorite trip that you had at SYA.
Yeah, sure. So for Spain, we went on 2 academic trips. The first one was actually the first week of November, and I went to San Sebastian. And then the second one happens middle of March, and I went to Andalusia. And I would say my favorite was going to Andalusia. We got to go to various parts of the region, and the weather was super nice. So a lot of it was outside, and we went to museums. We went on a boat tour. We did all of these very like Andalusian activities, and you get to know so many of your classmates that maybe you don't have classes with, because the class sizes, I'd say there's about 10 kids per class. So you get to know people on like a deeper level, spending 5 days with them. And it's just such a cool opportunity to take a week out of the school year and travel and learn experientially.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. That does sound like a pretty cool trip. And just being able to get outside of the classroom with a smaller group of people and connect with them closer outside of school too is great while you're still doing school things. Tatia, I know that I kind of skipped over your extracurricular. You did something in Italy. Do you want to talk a little bit about your extracurriculars that you did?
Yeah, I tried to take advantage of all the different extracurricular opportunities. So I did a cooking class as well, and I did a ceramics class. But I spent the whole year doing a theater class with some of my best friends and two young theater teachers and actors, which was really, really cool. And we did Dante, and we got to like perform at the end of the year for all of our host families and our friends and our school in Italian. We did our own play, and we just did all these sorts of things. So that was really awesome to kind of like memorize lines in another language. Just was kind of mind blowing.
That sounds hard, but incredible. And I know you guys were featured in the video too. It seemed very cool. So hats off to you guys and for all of you for doing something, the cooking classes and joining an orchestra. I mean, it takes a lot to step outside of your comfort zone. And that's what SYA is all about. So we're going to keep going on. Andre, do you either want to talk about your host family and how they were, or like a favorite memory that you have with them?
Yeah. So my host family lived about an hour outside of the city, which made it a little bit hard to get into the city. I would usually like wake up at 7 to like catch the bus, but it also gave me the chance to like see like a suburban neighborhood, and it was just completely different from like America. Just like in the sense that like I'm not sure how to describe it, but sorry, you asked me to talk about the host family. But they did take me on trips. We went to an island about a 3-hour drive outside of Rennes, and we spent the weekend there during Christmas. And so we went to like Christmas markets, and it was just like a really nice time to like bond with my host family. So yeah, they were really welcoming, really accepting. They would drive me to my extracurriculars if I needed to. They were really flexible. They always like communicated with my parents, like if we were going to go somewhere or if we were going to do something, they would be like, "Oh, hey, we're going to take Andre like out to a market or something," and they would send pictures and everything, which my parents I know loved.
They probably loved that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I do want to note too, I'm going to ask Tati about her host family too. A big question that families have at home is, okay, so what about the host families? All of our host families are background checked. They're referred to our program by other families who've done the program. So we know our families, and they're all vetted and all that. So sometimes families do happen to live a little far away. Sometimes they're close. But our families will be either driving students to school. The students might be taking public transportation, which is a lot better in Europe than it is here. So it's pretty easy to get on the train or take buses in these different cities too. So it's just something to note. Tatia, do you want to talk a little bit about your host family or a favorite memory that you have with them?
Yeah, mine was like honestly a very similar experience to Andre's. I lived not as far, like 10 minutes outside of the town. And they drove me to school every morning and drove me back, after the school day or after dinner, whenever I wanted to come home. And we took a lot of trips together, which was just one of the most transformative aspects of my whole year. And not all host families do that, but I got to go like far. We went all the way up north to go skiing in the winter, and that was really cool. And also we just went close by on the weekends, and that was a really cool time for me to get closer with my host brother, who was 10 years old, and just like those long car rides where we just listened to music and chatted and played games was really fun.
That's great. I think it's those little moments that mean a lot. And I'm sure all of you, can recount a time when you first got over there. It is a little scary, being with a new family, but little moments like that, I feel like really stand out and kind of help you feel closer and build bonds with your family. So super important. And I'm glad that you guys shared that. Thank you. We're going to move on to favorite fieldwork activities. So we talked a little bit about that in the video. Andy, do you want to talk about a favorite fieldwork activity and memory that you have?
Sure. My favorite field work was in the beginning of the year, maybe like the second or third weekend. We went to a vineyard. I'd say it was like an hour and a half outside of Zaragoza, and it was so much fun. We got to pick the grapes off of the vines, and we put all the grapes in this huge like bucket. I don't even know, and every student got to take a turn like stomping on the grapes. And it was at the start of the program, so everyone was still getting to know each other. And like even in May, towards the end, we would talk about how much fun that was. And I think it was everybody's favorite field work. It was just such a unique experience. I had never really been to a vineyard like that and had the experience of making wine.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I've seen pictures of that, and it seems pretty cool. And I think, fieldwork activities like that, it's great, obviously, to utilize the knowledge that you're learning in the classroom and getting outside of it. But it also bonds you together with your classmates. So having things like that, it's always great to hear. So thank you for sharing that, Andy. And we're going to move on to capstones too. So Andy, I know that you wanted to talk about the capstone that you did. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I loved the capstone project. Mine focused on the architecture in Zaragoza. So my host mom's boyfriend was actually an architect. So he helped me a lot with interviews and finding other architects, pointing out specific buildings that he found interesting, and I did as well. So that was really cool. There's a lot of Roman influence in Zaragoza. If you're looking to go to SYA Spain, you'll visit. They have various museums with like Roman ruins, and during other academic travels, a bunch of cities in Spain have Roman influences, so they'll take you there as well. So I was really interested in studying that and how it affected like the current architecture. And I would also say the presentation that you give, each student gives a presentation fully in Spanish about what they researched and what they found. And that was like such a great way to close out the year and just like see how much my Spanish speaking abilities had improved since when I got to Spain in September.
That's awesome to point, kind of looking at where you started and then finishing it out with this language experience. If you don't mind, Andy, what did you start at? Like what language level did you come into SYA at?
I think I was in level 3. I don't know if all schools do this, but I was nowhere near fluent. I went in pretty confident, and then, like I'd say in the first week, I was like, wow, I have a bunch to improve on. But everybody was in the same boat. Like you all the students, is kind of like a bonding thing. But this is my experience. My host family was extremely helpful. They made a huge difference in my fluency. And I'd say after 2 months, especially with the help also of like having your classes in Spanish, you kind of just like one day it clicks and you just like feel so much more comfortable speaking in the other language. It's really cool.
That's awesome. And I'm going to ask all of you guys about your language level. Andre, what did you come in with when you started SYA France?
I took the DELF exam, which is like a French proficiency exam.
Yeah.
And I passed B1 the year before that I left. And then, I came back and I am gonna take the B2 exam this year. So it doesn't seem like a huge jump, but it is pretty difficult. So I'd say I'm pretty good.
That's awesome. So it was probably good for you to come in with a little bit. But even like hearing from Andy too, some people are coming in with a little bit less fluency than taking the DELF exam. But that's awesome to hear. And Tatia, I know it's a little different. Did you know any Italian before you started?
So I did, but most people didn't at all. Like I had very limited. I would not say I was even like level 1 Italian, but like I could say some words, and most of my peers didn't know anything. And that was one of the things that surprised me the most was by the end, like we were conversationally fluent, and I didn't know you could I felt like that was insane to literally learn a language from nothing to a lot in just 1 year. And by the end, like I would dream in Italian, and I still do, which is just insane to me. So like having no Italian experience will not limit you at all.
That's so funny. I feel like I hear that a lot from alumni. They'll say, you know, it took a few months, and then when I started dreaming in the language of the country that I'm in, or started to just think in that language all the time, that's when you know it really clicks. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I always think that's funny when people are like, my dreams were actually in Spanish or French or Italian. We're going to move on to the next question. So a typical day at school. I don't know if any of you guys want to talk about, you know, your typical day in the life, kind of just run through a schedule. Anyone can volunteer for this.
I can do it. So normally I'd wake up at around 7 to catch the 7:20-ish bus. I get ready, I'd eat really quickly. I'd get on the bus, and then I get to school at around 8, which is an hour before class starts. So classes start at 9. We would go until around noon, and then we'd have an hour and a half lunch break, and we'd eat at the local high school with the local high schoolers. And you know, we'd still have like half an hour after lunch, like to come back and like rest and relax a little bit before classes restarted. And then we get out of school around 4:15-ish. And then sometimes I'd go to the pool and go swim, either with my team or without, just like recreationally. And then sometimes me and my friends would just walk through the city, because it's such like a small, like Rennes is such a small city, that it's easily walkable while also having like distinct areas. So I found that pretty cool. And then usually I'd get back home around 6 to 7-ish, and then I'd eat dinner, work on homework, and then go to bed.
Awesome. Thank you for that little play-by-play. It's always good to hear. And all the cities too, you know, are pretty walkable. I mean, they are cities, but the public transportation is great, but there's also very cute areas around each of the schools too. I've been to Rennes, and it's beautiful around there. The parks there and all of that. Same thing goes with all the other schools and cities that we're in. And last question that we have here before we get into our submitted questions is, what made you want to apply to SYA? If anybody wants to talk about why they decided to go to SYA, kind of what the deciding factor was for them, feel free to speak up.
I can talk about this one. So I knew a little bit about SYA going into my sophomore year. I had seen upperclassmen from my high school do the program, and I'd always like known a little bit about it, but didn't know. And they came to present at my school, and I was just like so impressed by this opportunity. And I was very nervous about doing the whole year. I really wanted to just do the semester. But one of the representatives, like, I don't remember exactly, but she just explained to me how much more beneficial it is to do the whole year, like learning Spanish, and how once you leave at December, it's kind of like you're getting close to being 100% fluent, but then you'll get home and you lose a little bit of it. And learning the language was one of the biggest pieces of SYA that I was interested in. So that made me apply for the whole year. And I've also been at my high school for a while, so I was interested in getting a little bit of a change and just experiencing something new. And I was very nervous going into it. Like, I know everybody was after talking with a bunch of my friends, like a few months after, but it was just like the best decision I've ever made. Like, I'm still in contact with all my friends, my host family, and I would just say, like, it's like completely normal to be nervous, and everybody is, but it's just really great. And like, once you get over the nerves, it's like even more than you picture right now.
That's awesome, Andy. Thank you for sharing. I think that's something, you know, all of you guys on this call can relate to. It's the nerves about, should I do this? Should I go? But being able to push yourself and do something, it's incredible. You guys are wonderful. And so it's great to hear from your experiences and, you know, why you wanted to go too. And it's cool. Like I mentioned before, it's great to hear from somebody like me, but it's also great knowing people that went and having info sessions like this, where we're hearing directly from our students talk about their experiences. I don't think there's anything better than that. We're going to move on to our submitted questions. And then if anybody does have any questions right now, you can feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try our best to get to them. I know we did have questions about school breaks. That's a question we get a lot. So for school breaks, like winter break, we do encourage our students to stay abroad if possible. There's no better way, for families to come over if they're able to. It's a great opportunity for them to see your country, to see the city that you've been in, the school, to meet your host family. It's honestly a wonderful opportunity for your family to get involved in your life abroad. So we strongly encourage people to stay for breaks. It also helps with the language component. It's very difficult to go back to the US for a few days and then come back and, kind of be all over the place. But if people have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us in the admissions team. I don't know if any of you guys had family visit over either winter break or spring break. Nods maybe. Okay, very nice. And it's a great time to visit too. All of these towns and cities that our campuses are in are very beautiful for winter and break. So it's always good for families to see that. I know that people had different questions about specific extracurriculars. I strongly recommend looking on our website for specific extracurriculars. Since we are smaller schools, we don't have our own soccer team or we don't have our own sports team sometimes. So I recommend looking online, trying to see our extracurricular sections, see what we offer at each of our campuses. We do offer a lot, and it's a great way, like I mentioned earlier, and like our students have mentioned, to make friends with their students, like at their school at SYA, but also to engage in the local community as well. Because like Andre said, he was on a team with some students in France who were from the local area. So it's a great opportunity to meet people, your own age, and do something that you like as well, or try something new. We do have a question in the chat, and I'll direct this to you, Andy, too, but all of you guys can answer after about the biggest culture shock, arriving in a country like Spain.
Yeah, so I would say in those first few weeks, the biggest culture shock was the food and also the length of the meals. I obviously knew the food would be different. It's a completely foreign country, but I just didn't realize how different and kind of how unfamiliar they are with American food. Like they kind of just think we eat hamburgers. But that was a great way to bond with my host family, hearing about their favorite types of Spanish foods, and then me sharing my favorite American foods. And then for the duration of the meals, lunch is kind of their main meal. And maybe this is just my family, but we're more of a dinner family in the US. So on the weekends, we would have 2-hour lunches. And in the beginning, I was like, what is going on? But I actually grew to completely love these lunches. And oftentimes my host mom's sisters or her mom would come and we would all cook together and have a nice long meal. And a few months in, I would be able to talk with them and completely understand what they were saying. But that was, I would say, the biggest change for me, just that difference in food and length.
Yeah. I mean, we hear that a lot. It's the length or how late dinner can be sometimes. So thank you for touching on that. I don't know, Tatia or Andre, if you want to talk about a culture shock that you experienced, if it's different in the countries that you are in. If not, no worries. We can move on. All right. We'll keep going. So we did have questions about scholarships. I did touch upon that briefly in earlier on in the video portion. If you're interested in learning more about scholarship opportunities or financial aid, there is a section on the website that kind of breaks that down for you too. So all the scholarships we offer and the financial aid as well. I do want to note that if you're interested in applying for the scholarships and for financial aid, the deadline is the same deadline as our application. So that deadline is February 7th. So make sure to get all of that in by then. And again, with all of these things, if you do have questions about that, just let us know. We did have a question about somebody interested in Spain. how often are fieldwork days? I do want to note, and you guys can talk about your experiences with fieldwork, Andy specifically, because we have a question for Spain. These students, I believe you guys had fieldwork every week for a day. We're looking at doing half-day fieldworks now with a day sprinkled out here and there. So it might look a little bit different for students that are interested in SYA applying for next year in terms of length of our fieldwork and those opportunities, but pretty similar about what you're doing. Andy, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, field work from your perspective. I know you touched upon it a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So as Kenzie said, our field works were once a week every Wednesday, and we would have those instead of regular classes. And I would say throughout the whole year, we had maybe 10 where we would travel around Spain, but by bus. So I'd say the farthest we went was 2 hours away. And we would do various things. Sometimes they would relate to one of the environmental science classes. So like once we went and planted olive trees relating to that. But other times it would be more to focus on a specific aspect of Zaragoza. So in October, there's this big week of celebrations. It's called Pilares. It's like one of their biggest celebrations. And we did like a few weeks of field work, interviewing locals and like attending events, learning about how they celebrate, what the meaning behind it is and everything. So fieldwork was a great way to just like learn about the culture of the specific city, because I didn't know this going into Spain, but like each city kind of has their own differences in like language and celebrations. Like Zaragoza's specific one is Pilares. So that was really cool. And then answering the second part, I lived like 10 minutes from school, right in the center of the city. So I walked every day. But I had a lot of friends who took public transportation. I know in Spain they had a bus system, and then they also had a tram. So it's kind of like the subway, but above ground. And it's super easy to figure out. And in that first orientation week, they'll explain like to each student how it works.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I know we're coming close a little bit on time. So I think my last question for all of the students is, if you could give yourself or students that are interested one piece of advice or something you wish you knew, what would it be? I know this is a little bit very broad range, but if anybody wants to go first, just a piece of advice.
I can go. This is something that I think I did know, but I'm so glad that I did know it. And so I would give it to any students who are going to do SYA, is just to live every day to the fullest. Like, I made that agreement with myself that since I got this amazing opportunity, like I was just going to squeeze everything I could out of my entire year. And I did that. And it's left me with like so many memories, and I don't regret a single moment because I was just out there like living in another country.
That's awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? A piece of advice?
Sort of like Tasia said, really just like be adventurous, like try any and everything, honestly, because there's so many different things that you can do at SYA. I feel like just go for it, honestly.
Awesome. And Andy, do you have anything to add before we end?
This is bordering on the same topic, but relating to your host families, just spend as much time as you can with them and just be creative in ways that you can bond with them and like create new memories, because I think it's like the most unique part of SYA is like if you can create that close host family relationship, it's so special. Like I still talk to my host mom all the time. So I think that if you like are able to do that and create like a genuine connection, it's really amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys, for being here and answering my questions and taking some time out of your night to talk with us. Round of applause for you. Thank you so much. For all of you tuning in, thank you so much for listening to us and listening to our students talk about their experiences. If we didn't answer any of your questions, or if you have any additional questions, feel free to email me at mcaputo@sya.org. I'd be happy to chat with you. But until then, Thank you so much for tuning in and have a great night. Bye, guys.